And we're live. And good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining me. I'm David Christopher Salomon, and you're watching Social Video Supercoach. So, there's been lots of developments over the last couple of years with the changes and developments in the social media platforms, particularly in Facebook and YouTube, but there's been smaller players as well. There's no doubt that Facebook has taken one of the big spots. It's you know, a huge platform now, and is still gaining momentum and has new products in the pipeline that we're going to be seeing in the not too distant future. But as well as that, they haven't been the first up with some of the new developments. In fact, the big companies have bought out some smaller ones and added it to their platform. We saw Meerkat, which was the first of the live, not actually the first, but one of the early successful live video platforms. And in fact, it peaked very early. It got a good head of steam up, but it wasn't quick enough to actually get the investment behind it to outlive the more sustained efforts that were coming through from Facebook when they started out, or Twitter, when they took on Twitter rather, not Facebook, but when Twitter powered up with Periscope, that really spelt the beginning of the end for Meerkat. So we're seeing live video as a new development. You know, I first started looking at live video quite some years ago. I was training media production at the time, and I was particularly interested in creating programs live to disk, so that we could avoid the big job of editing after the program. If we could do all the preparation up front and then, you know, do the shoot, mix it on the fly, that would mean that we had a finished product very quickly coming, you know, to the disk. And it meant that certain things were possible using that model that were not possible if we needed to invest a good deal of time and energy in edit after the shoot. And I was using a program called Boinks TV. It was described as the AV van without the van. And it was basically a TV studio in the Mac. And we could shoot with a couple of cameras, mix on the fly, have all the graphics and the clips we wanted to add into the program. We were doing documentary style programs, and we'd have a studio set up and introduce clips through the program, and we would just feed those in using Boinks TV. A brilliant bit of software, loved it. But we had the big problem of bringing it to the market. How would we find an audience for that? You know, it was still too difficult to find an online audience from just a small user base. We used YouTube, not YouTube, but Ustream and Livestream for a little while, but you know, really didn't have the energy or the resources that were required to make that happen. In the meantime, we see things like Facebook Live, Periscope, Snapchat, all these other things come along that originally were probably designed for different purposes. But the idea of being able to broadcast live onto the internet to a community of people who are interested in what you were doing, what you know, they'd find what you were doing relevant to them. This is an idea that wouldn't go away. And so now, in this last little while, particularly with Facebook Live, has got me very excited because it fills in that other side. Facebook, as you know, already has the capacity to build audiences, custom audiences or new audiences, and to target them quite directly and to retarget them with a particular message as well. And so with Facebook Live didn't have the, still doesn't have the capacity, you know, to do the sorts of things that we were doing from Boinks TV, because you can only shoot it from a mobile phone, and so there's no mixing or curation capacity before the shoot. But once that happens, it certainly is going out to an audience. So we're bringing those sorts of ideas together, not necessarily with those technologies, because there's lots of options that we can use now. First of all, you know, I mentioned before there was Meerkat. Vine was around for, well, it's still around, you know, doing short video. Periscope, Snapchat, Facebook Live, and YouTube Connect is on the way as well. So we're, and the other one, of course, is Blab, which is a little bit different and takes everything a step further by being able to involve the audience directly in the broadcast. Up to 4 people can be directly involved in the broadcast. So a matter of picking up, you know, contributors from the audience and including them on the fly. We're going to see that sort of capacity come to the other platforms as well, I'm sure, as well as a whole lot of other stuff. Facebook has commissioned a production house to create content for a Facebook show, like a broadcast show that will be going directly to the channel. Enormous changes afoot for us, and enormous opportunities to really use the platforms and the formats that people are really getting excited about. And that's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk a little bit about the what and the why, before we follow up that with future editions about the how, and the how in terms of technology, and the how in terms of creating content, storytelling. Because the thing that really makes the difference for people is being able to engage more deeply, and I would say at a story level, with their community on topics that are relevant to them. So that's where we're going. But today it's something of an overview, and we're having just a quick start look at social video. So I've made some notes here. I'm going to switch over to those now, and we will take it away there. So here we go. So incidentally, what I'm using now is I've got a like a PowerPoint, a keynote on my iPad that I'm feeding into my Mac. Okay. We can see by the statistics, by the analytics, that online video is preferred over all other types of content. It's certainly more popular than text. It doesn't do all the things that text will do, but in terms of sharing, commenting, engagement, it you know, wins the race by a long way, because it offers new ways to engage with content. It offers a real conversation and the opportunity for people to, you know, give more of themselves in terms of the body language, in terms of the expression, in terms of their own individuality as part of the story that's being built up. So it is more genuinely and authentically part of the community that they're engaged in. So from the point of view of a producer, one of the key things is to have a plan of how to use some of these new technologies that are becoming available, rather than trying to do everything at once, which is really impossible and would result simply in getting lost and, you know, from the task. Having a media plan is the way to go. It's you know, essential to get your goals down and really understand for yourself what you can get out of it and what you can put into it, and what it might offer. And that involves you know, structure in terms of the development, production, and distribution. So we're looking at a sort of creating a workflow, a pipeline to deliver content to our audiences in social media. So what is social media? Well, video specifically to be distributed on social networks. That has implications in terms of the formats and the quality, the size, all sorts of things. But really the big difference is that it places the focus on the audience. You know, while we get excited about the platform and the things that can be done, in terms of the end user, you know, we have our favourites, the ones we like to use, and, you know, that after a short time really becomes invisible, and we're concerned about, you know, the message, the audience, the community that we're getting involved in. There's a quote that I like. It goes, "Social video is any video produced by a brand that is relevant to their audience. Whether the goal of the video is to entertain or to educate isn't necessarily as important as relevancy of the content." Now, what we're really getting at there is that, you know, think of the Facebook feed where, you know, I've seen people who have lots of engagement in video. Their whole feed on some days, excuse me, can be made up of videos. And as you're scrolling through, you know, what is it that would say, oh, stop there, you know, put the brakes on that one, let's have a look. You know, that's the nut that we need to crack, really, in understanding what it is that is going to grab someone's attention to the extent that they'll say, oh, I'm going to have a look at that. So we're going to see a lot of changes flowing on from those that we've already seen. We're going to see video in message probably before too long. You know, with the snap codes, the Facebook codes, is going to make it very easy and very quick simply to send a message or to connect on a video link with someone. A video link, you know, this is Dick Tracy sort of stuff, you know, this is the science fiction of the 60s and 70s that is really coming to pass now. There's technical things that we as producers need to be concerned about, that once we establish the protocols will simply be the way that we do things. But the video obviously has to be optimized for viewing online, and most of it is happening on phones. So the size, the aspect ratio, the bandwidth it takes, all these details become, you know, really quite important now. And the reason that I'm able to broadcast this video from my home studio is because we've recently had fibre put on, you know, so that bandwidth now is no longer an issue for us. And we will see much more video, you know, driving the user engagement, the sharing, the commenting, the liking, the interacting, the storytelling. So, how can you be part of the conversation with video your audience wants to share? Well, you're already engaged with the audience for most people. You'll have been doing that with text and images and other forms in the past. And so what we're talking about now is really a switch, you know, or a sidestep in the format and the way that we're actually putting content together. You know, what's the structure and the direction that we want to take? It's going to be much the same as before, but using different tools and probably making things happen a lot quicker. Content marketing is different from the traditional advertising methods simply because that there is a two-way conversation that's happening that wasn't ever possible with broadcast television or radio for that matter. But now, you know, it was there up to a point with text, but without the pictures, there's really not that much personality involved in it. So people who were really good on the typewriter or the keyboard rather, or really good with the written text, are already well established in that space. But for most people, that wasn't something that they would necessarily go out and develop. So, the idea of content marketing through video all of a sudden is becoming, a much better proposition for a lot of people, because the opportunity to educate, to inform, provide value using video is so much stronger using video. Now, content marketing delivers increased site returns, consumption of premium content, online purchases, and responses to calls to action. So we're seeing that video is a much more effective tool to be using in the online space. It's much more effective than, the text that someone has to wade through. And we've been seeing that for some time. And we're really only seeing the beginning of it. Now, video also has search engine optimization benefits. We already see how well it performs on social media and how video is being prioritized by, the big platforms. And the reason is because people like it more. 62% more likes and comments. The moving picture is very powerful. Mobile users especially are eager, with over 92% sharing videos on social. So people who never share, standard posts or texts or photos certainly are sharing video now in a way that wasn't happening before. It's much more immediate. They're much more involved and engaged in it. There's an old saying that people remember 10% of what they hear, 20% of what they read, 80% of what they see. So standing out in the newsfeed is the critical thing. How to prevent someone or to catch someone's eye so they don't simply scroll past, your post, your message in the news stream. That's the challenge that we're facing. And video performs better than other things on the whole in achieving that. So we're seeing a shift in the way marketing is happening, and it's much less of a hard sell, trying to convince someone that this is what they need, much more of a conversation that discusses things as they really are, so that it becomes really obvious for a person whether they need a particular service or product to achieve a certain end. So the hard sell is on the way out, thank goodness. And, once having had, a good experience with a particular community and having problem solved, people are going to continue to keep coming back to that same community to develop their conversation further. So, a few steps you can take immediately. Well, the first one is to set your goals. Write them down on paper. What is it that you want to achieve through social video? There's a number of things around this. You need to know your audience. You need to know what is relevant to them. And that is going to determine some of the other decisions that you make as a result. You'll know already from the content that you've been providing them what they're interested in, what is successful. And so you'll be able to repurpose that content rather than developing new content from scratch. The question is how to do it in a visual way, how to do it in a way that is not going to be greatly time consuming or be more like developing content from scratch rather than using something that you've already got. Yeah, so building on the strengths that you already have. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the future. We're going to, in the near future, be looking at the platforms one at a time. And next time, I'm going to be looking at getting more love from Google for your YouTube channel. And I'll be explaining just how that works and how it's a fairly straightforward job to rank your YouTubes on Google under particular conditions. It's very easy to do. So I hope to see you then. Thank you for attending. It's a great pleasure that I'm able to bring this content to you, and I hope you find it useful and there's something to do, something that you can do as a result for it. Before I see you next time, please do take the time with pen and paper to set out the goals that you might have. And once you know them, you'll be able to engage in the conversation all the more. So once again, have a good day, and I'll see you next time. Now, scrolling credits.